Well, welcome everybody. I am your host, Indy, and right over here, that way, I'm saying that way, is Jay Powell from Powell Group Consulting.
Good afternoon. I'm still getting used to the streaming thing, and it's like I see myself, but I'm not going to talk to myself for like 2 minutes. So bear with me.
Don't you know you can pop out the chat? That way you're just not looking at the stream, right? There's a little.
Yeah, I totally knew that. That's absolutely.
Of course you knew that. then don't look at yourself. That's the downfall. It's like listening to your own echo. So what's up? Hi everybody. Functional idiot, what's up? So today,
don't listen to that guy. That guy's bad news.
Dysfunctional.
He's very bad. He actually is the right hand of my company.
Oh, Willie Wet Shoe the Pirate, what's up? So don't listen to him then for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely don't. No, he's sketchy.
All right, so this is episode 2. It's our second one, dude. I'm excited. And this time first we're going to talk about some industry news, but we are also going to talk about ways to save time as an indie game studio. So
I'm excited we didn't get canceled. I mean, not that we could get canceled, but I'm still excited it didn't get canceled.
They signed us up for another show.
Exactly. We have a 2-show contract.
A 2-show contract. That's funny. And that, you know what? That's why we get paid the big bucks for doing this, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I guess I'm just going to post this link in the chat and then we can talk about it, right? This one right here, Slay the Spire has China to thank for launching its 700,000 sales in Steam. 700,000 sales?
Yes.
What?
And it's not the first one. I mean, there was another game a couple of months ago that did the very same thing. But, the Chinese market is now a huge untapped area for Steam games. And, we saw this earlier, maybe back in 2017, maybe even 2016, when the whole rage seemed to be like to review bomb anything on Steam that you didn't like. There were a couple of titles that just got depth charged on, their reviews and
Just
came out of China.
Yeah.
And, that's where it comes from. That's when everybody was like, oh, wow, there's actually a Chinese market, out there for PC games on Steam, because everybody just always thinks of it as, that's this, great mystery mobile game area that, you can't seem to figure out completely. But, the reality is it's a huge market for, a lot of these games, everything from indie games all the way up to AAA games on Steam. You just got to be aware of the cultural localization. As an indie dev, you need to localize your game into Chinese. You need to prepare for that, but you also have to keep in mind things that will get you like censored in China. I mean, I think it's Dead Body Skeletons. I mean, World of Warcraft has had a bitch of a time doing some of their expansions because of all the rules that the Chinese government imposes. But, what these guys right here is just one of the, more recent examples of you can get a lot of sales out of a well done, Chinese launch.
That is crazy. I wonder if I even have this game. Slay the Spire. Oh, I do have it. Nice. It's in my library. So yeah,
Stream libraries like mine. Do I have that game? I think I might.
I think I played it. So how did they get it so popular in China? I mean, what was their process?
Their process was a streamer. They didn't even do outreach for him. I mean, that's the article was talking about. One of the big Chinese streamers picked it up and played it, and the guys basically got up the next morning and went, "Where did all these sales come from?" And they traced it back and saw that that's exactly what it was. One of the big streamers picked it up and started playing it.
It was the second most downloaded Steam game at the end of January. I didn't realize that. Right now on Twitch, they have 137,000 followers, over 1,000 viewers. None of them are like massively huge channels that are streaming. Like the largest one has 470 viewers, and then it goes immediately. Like that's the top 4 is where most of the views are. It looks like.
Yeah, that's you see that anywhere. I mean, that's the I mean, it's not exactly the 80-20 rule, but it's the equivalent of the 80-20 rule.
Right.
But this is pretty much equivalent to 2 or 3 years ago when some game would come out of nowhere and all of a sudden PewDiePie would play it and then it'll be selling across
like
the board.
hotcakes. So I wonder,
exactly.
I wonder how that trend will go, though. I mean, I wonder over the next months if it will still stay as popular. I guess it depends on if it's a good game or not.
Well, I mean, yeah, but again, you're looking at the difference between like a premium game like Slay the Spire versus something that's free to play. If the hubbub dies down on a free to play game, that's not good at all. But if the hubbub dies down on this, they already sold 700,000 copies of it.
Right.
It's no game is going to last forever, but getting a nice plus 500,000 sales is always a good thing for you.
That'll help you with your next game.
Exactly. Or your vacation to Tahiti, one or the other.
Whatever. Maybe to China. I mean, who knows?
And the takeaway is, as an indie dev, these are things that you have to keep in the back of your mind. And it's not something you can like slap on at the very end of, production. And, as our friend Functional Idiot will point out, who has done a lot of localization, it's something you have to plan for from the beginning, but if you do it and you do it well, then you can see a huge upside. So
what are the countries you think the main countries to get localized for? China,
Russia, Germany. Those are, if I have a game, those are the three that I'm going to start with.
China, Russia, and Germany. So another that actually, on a little tangent, so apparently Russia has cut off where you can't view anything from Amazon or Google. So that means that Russians cannot watch Twitch. So I'm told, the way that I understand it from reading stuff.
There was I saw the article, but I didn't, I haven't read the article yet. So I don't know if it's something that is permanent or if it's something that is, just some kind of tweak of whatever, and it's going to come back online. But I mean, the thing to keep in mind is Russia has they have huge social networks outside of Facebook and Amazon and Google. They're not completely and utterly reliant on, what we're doing for them to be, accepted. Right. So
same with China. They have their own streaming platforms that are massive.
Oh yeah.
Besides Twitch. Yes.
And then I was watching the kid on one of the Korean Twitch streams who figured out how to hack his way into playing the Retribution, AI bosses in quick matches. And it was absolutely hilarious. And I think that might have lasted about 4 hours before Blizzard fixed that patch. But that was interesting to watch last night.
Wow. Where were you watching that on? Was it on Twitch?
Yeah, it was on. It was some article I came across, and it had a link to it. But yeah, all the clips were on Twitch.
Oh wow! Then they shut that down.
Oh yeah, they're not gonna let that go for a while.
That's not gonna happen.
I'll see if I can Google that up while.
Okay. Well, so the next thing is the Gamasutra article. Devs can now pitch crowdfunded. Hold on, let me. Here.
I love the way it turned that and sign into AMP for ampersand, and so now it looks like DAMP-D co-creators.
Yeah. Devs can now pitch crowdfunded games based on D&D co-creators' unpublished work.
And this is all right. So this is something that I love, having a good license to go with the game and doing good licensed games. And if anyone out at Wizards, and there's one person in particular who I'm talking to is watching this, I want my Dragonlance games. Okay, bring those back. There's so many great areas of exploration, for lack of a better word, that you can do with games and IP. And so the news came out last week or earlier this week about the latest round of classic works basically that have fallen into public domain, which means anyone can use them. So like, The Wizard of Oz,
Night of the Living Dead.
Is that
that's public domain.
Is that public domain now?
Yeah.
There's a lot of these classic stories that can be adapted to a game, and you don't necessarily have to go out and, get a license and pay a royalty and all this kind of good stuff.
Uh-huh.
But, one of the things that always irks me is, great untapped, sources of IP. And like Gary Gygax's, unfinished stuff in D&D is awesome. I mean, now that you've got the ability and they're, opening this up to developers, I think it's wonderful. I wish more companies would do this. What typically happens is, say I go to one of the big movie studios and I'm like, hey, I want to do a game based on, something, somewhat of a cult classic movie. I don't know, I have an example off the top of my head, but something that's not it's coming out in the next, year to 6 months, big tentpole multi-million-dollar thing,
right? Or
like one of their classic tried and true things that they rehash all the time. It's like they don't want to touch it. They don't want to do it. And so it's, they see it as there's not going to be enough revenue in there to justify the work that they'll have to put in to oversee the project, which I get from a gigantic corporate point of view. But, the reality as a gamer, though, is like there's so much of this stuff out there, that can be worked into, making an awesome game. And, for a lot, most of the time, you don't get access to it. And so, this is fantastic. Now, if you've got a game that is, if you're sitting out there and you're, halfway through your game, the further down the road you are, the less likely you're going to be able to do a good, integration of a license. But especially early stage games or games that are, at that playable phase, but they're not they're not like full blown beta and we're getting ready to go to release candidate stage. If you are interested in any of these, properties from Gygax and, you pitch them and you integrate it, it's a huge way to stand out in the crowd. I saw a friend of mine tweeted today that a couple of weeks ago, there was like 125 games on the Switch eShop, and now there's over 500. So congratulations. We have already reached the point where the, Switch eShop is, starting to get, or is overcrowded.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to be able to stand out in some way, shape, or form. And, this is a, awesome opportunity to be able to do that. And, it's interesting because at GDC, we saw the thing where Universal came out and said, we're going to be taking pitches for, games based on, I forget the three. I know one of them was Voltron, because I was like, somebody please make a good Voltron game.
Voltron, yes.
Yes. There's a lot of opportunity there. And, the rumor that I heard from that was there weren't a lot of actual submissions, which kind of sucks. I hate that. But, you can look at it in a cynical way and say, they're just being lazy and they don't want to sit down and come up with a game. And, they're just going to exploit, other developers and take a big chunk of the money. I don't, I can see that point. I don't completely agree with it because at the same, these are movie folks. They're not game folks.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have game company folks that have moved into movies. But, it's not, you can't sit down and say, okay, let's have the producer or the licensing folks at Universal come up with 6 great game ideas and then execute on them, because it's just not going to happen. It's that's not their wheelhouse. And, chances are if it were to happen that way, we'd end up with some of these games that we always bitch about licenses that suck.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's a trend I want to see continue, because, I think it is wonderful to be giving these smaller devs access to some of this IP and some of these promotions and some of the stuff that they can do with licenses, as opposed to the situation we have with Star Wars, where EA owns everything and, you're never going to get that cool little, what have you game out of it. They're talking about not doing single player games at all, which, kills your whole open world RPG. And then, like 2 weeks ago, somebody was like, Star Wars, EA is actually making an open world, RPG for, Star Wars. So I'm not a fan of, licenses being held hostage under, one company's control. So I hope I see more of this. And, anybody out there, if you've got ideas and you need help, fine tuning it for stuff like this, drop us a note, send us a note. I'm happy to help, where we can, because these are good opportunities and I want to see them, acted upon.
You just want to see some D&D games.
I do want to see some D&D games.
Right. I think so too. I mean, that's like stuff from my childhood as well. I mean, I remember, in the 80s, we would sit around and play it.
Well, they just redid Neverwinter Nights, didn't they? Is that the one that just got re-enhanced?
I think so, because I know there's some promotional stuff happening about Neverwinter Nights recently.
Planescape Enhanced Edition just got launched last week.
Planescape.
Maybe that's the one. That was a good game. My favorite was the which one? It was the actual honest to God turn-based one that I think I'm the only person in the world that liked. But, I was like, this is D&D. D&D isn't 6 people running around in real time trying to do something. It's actually planning what you're going to do and then executing on it. So,
right.
And I want my Dragonlance games, Wizards.
Oh, get those in there. Dragonlance. All right, so our next article here is from Business Wire that we're going to talk about. I'll post that right there. Unity Technologies and Universal Games launch Universal Game Dev Challenge.
Oh, no, that's the one we were just talking about. That's what they did at GDC.
Okay.
That's where, Universal. So this is actually the article I was looking for. What did they put in there? There were
create games, some of the most popular films and television shows. Oh, wow.
Back to the Future, Jaws, Battlestar, Galactica, Voltron, which I think is the new Voltron that's on Netflix, and Turok, which is interesting because our friends over at Night Dive have just recently launched both Turok games on Xbox One. They remastered them so you can actually get the old Turok games now.
Finalists will compete for $250,000 in cash prizes.
Oh, well, that's probably why they, I didn't notice that. That might be why they didn't get that many bids, because that's not a lot of money to do, a game based on any of that. Huh.
3 days of mentorship with Intel, Microsoft, Unity, and Universal to learn from brand visionaries and sharpen their technical skills. That's cool. That's cool. Oh, and then they have 6 finalists. And they will be announced on October 23rd.
Yeah, and see that.
Here,
the rumor I heard was that there were only a handful of those things that were put in, but I don't know. I don't know if that's how accurate that is.
Yeah, that's the link to learn more about it. Actually, I'm going to save that page. That's awesome. Phoenix.
Hey, somebody's hosting us.
Hey, nice. I forgot to do that actually. Twitch.tv.
Thanks, Troy. Wait,
right.
You're not even hosting us on your own channel. That's hurt. That hurts, Andy.
Host. I'm terrible. There we go. Now we are. I'm bad. All right, so what's this other one? Phoenix Point is doing $100,000 a month on pre-orders.
All right, so this one is another one that's, I worked with Julian years ago, and I flat out love the XCOM games. I mean, just back to the D&D side, I'm a huge fan of turn-based strategy games. And I noticed, I kept seeing on Facebook all of these ads popping up for Phoenix Point.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, that is odd. You don't see that many developers and publishers doing these very targeted ads on on Facebook anymore. But Julian's got Phoenix Point coming out, and this is exactly what the article is talking about. They have sat down and created a targeted Facebook campaign, and they're bringing in $100,000 a month in pre-orders right now, which is fantastic for counter that against the cost of doing a targeted Facebook campaign, which is quite frankly not that expensive. In terms of the takeaway here for indie teams, I mean, it's you've got to look outside of what you're used to doing in order to get visibility. And if you just go and you create a, general Facebook ad, it's not going to work. But, if you go in and actually use all the little parameters that they have in there to, in their case, you're looking to target people in, the main countries that they're going to be selling in, which is, easy enough to figure out. I mean, you want to go Western Europe, Russia, China, and North America. And then you focus that based on maybe other games that people's played, or, groups that they're in, or Facebook pages that they're in, and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. As we know, Facebook knows a lot about you. And, you can actually, use it if you get in there and, you just got to work through a lot of it and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to target. I mean, he says that they target, like fans of Babylon 5. And, you could go in if you're, I'm sure they're targeting fans of XCOM 2, the games that have come out.
Yeah.
So,
Xenonauts.
Exactly. This is something you don't see every day, but it's noteworthy, and I wanted to call it out because, it's another way to get that word out there. I mean, being able to drive pre-sales of your game is huge. It's going to help you in Steam's algorithms. It's going to help you basically across the board. And so, they got a jump start because they did do a FIG campaign, but still.
And also they have a lot of assets already done. I mean, if you go to phoenixpoint.info, if you go to phoenixpoint.info, there's it's gorgeous. The website is amazing. Right at the top, they're like Rock, Paper, Shotgun, PC Gamer, and Game Reactor. And then they have like a trailer and a Let's Play and some really, really beautiful looking assets.
Because I'm lazy and I haven't gone over there. Do they have a release date on it yet?
Oh, let's see. Order. The site is gorgeous. Pre-order $50. Record access from April 30th, 2018.
Oh, cool. It's soon.
That's what you're getting. Hey, did you ever play the game Xenonauts?
I don't think I did.
It's like old school XCOM. Old school. Anyways, I worked on that game. It was a PC. I was the animator on that game.
Oh, who are you? Awesome.
So if you ever want to check out, it's a really good game, but it's old school stuff.
I've heard of it. I just never played it.
That was pretty much a solo dev did that. Need food. We all need food. I need food too. So look we got the $30 digital download edition for Phoenix Point on release. The most popular $50 backer build access from April 30th for $50.
I was looking to see. All right, and see here. This is interesting too. The only place you can pre-order it is on their site. You can't go to Steam again. That's what I was just looking up. And so all of these pre-orders that they're getting, they're basically getting a 30% return on it because Steam's not taking their cut out of it.
Yeah. So I wonder if they'll get a Steam key.
I'm sure they will. Yeah, you don't. If you're selling a key, you don't actually have to pay.
If you were selling the game from your site, but you're giving people Steam keys, does Steam still get the cut of that, right?
Nope. Not right now, unless they change it.
Okay. Red Tiger Pro, Aaron, food for all. We got a potato chip. I think that's popcorn, and I think that's a golden pile of poo. Oh, it's stinky cheese. Oh, it's pasta. I see.
You're going to need more food for that, Tiger.
Yeah.
Indy and I are not small people.
All right. Red Tiger Pro is Aaron from the website EnomView, which is they focus on indie games.
Nice. Welcome.
Oh, Triton. I just saw the Indie Ogre thing like this. Okay, so moving on. Now we are going to talk about saving some time. Saving time. Two primary ways to save time as an indie game studio: outsourcing and automation and tools. Right? This is what you have here in the list. So, you want to talk? What do you want to talk about first? Social media stuff?
No, I mean the first one. I mean just the outsourcing, because it's not
Okay.
we don't have to nearly dive into as much detail on that one as we do on, the various tools that are out there. But, outsourcing is anything from, I mean, you can have internal outsourcing. When I say outsourcing, it means as, an individual, something that you're asking for help doing. So it may be something that, I have one of the folks on my team, help me out with. It may be that I go and, hire, a specialist to do something. It may be that I go on Fiverr and get something. As I was growing this company, before I got to the point where it, justified having, employees, I had a virtual assistant, woman that was based up in Pennsylvania, and she was awesome. She wasn't from the industry, but she didn't have a lot of that, knowledge that, I could sit down and say, here's 50 games, go and classify them by genre and platform. But, a lot of the more day-to-day stuff that, is when you're trying to run a company and, grow a company and do all the stuff that you need to be doing. If you're at one of these studios and you're an artist or you're a programmer and you have basically other shit on your desk than just sitting here doing, copy for blog posts or, anything like that, always, be looking to see how you can outsource that to quality partners. And, it's hard to get over that. It was one of the hardest things for me to do initially because I was always been so independent. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. To that level, learning to that realization that you can't do everything. You've got to have help. That was a big step. And so, being able to sit down and say, let's go on Fiverr and get something done, or let's go on, Functional Idiot knows that site I'm talking about, where you can get, freelancers to help you do stuff, be it web design or what have you along those lines. There are, that's one of the easiest ways to save money. If you're out there and you can pay somebody, $15 an hour to do something, or you're on Fiverr and you're paying somebody like $6 an hour to do it, is it worth your time to be doing that versus doing something that's, higher yielding and more important, or even more to your, skill set than it is to go out and outsource it. And so, that's, one of the early things and one of the most important things I learned, starting my company was, okay, you can't do it all. You got to let go of some stuff, and you have to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at.
So what kind of stuff did you outsource?
A lot of the data entry work initially. So I would come home from a conference with
stack of business cards.
No, something like this. You go to any of the the big conferences, and Germany puts together a fantastic book on all the companies that are in Germany, everything from developers to publishers to technical companies. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things that we use to stay on top of the industry and who's doing what, and that sort of stuff. It doesn't take a expert in the industry. And the folks on my team, I've been doing this 20 years. They've all been in the industry for 10, 15 years. You don't necessarily need that level of expertise to sit down and generate a spreadsheet that has company and the contact number and the email address and that basic kind of data entry stuff that has to be done for you to stay on top of the industry. We would do stuff like that, or I might draw up a outline a blog post or something like that and hand it off to someone to proofread or format or things like that. The things that I know I'm not good at, despite the fact that I have an English degree that was in literature, not necessarily grammar or anything. Those types of things. And my compatriot who's hanging out with us today is one of the biggest examples of this. I can sit on, my computer and slam my face into the desk for 2 hours trying to get, some JPG or logo or something to look right. And I send it to him, and I'm like, "Can you take a look at this?" And then, like 4 minutes later, I get it back exactly the way I wanted it, and I'm like, "Okay, I hate you." There's just no other. He is way better at me at doing that sort of stuff, and so that's the type of thing that you have to keep in mind. And there's a lot of options out there. You don't necessarily have to go out and hire a whole team to do something, or go out and hire a full-time person, to be in the office. There are services out there. Amazon's got the Mechanical Turk, and then there's Fiverr, and then there's whatever that other one is that I can't remember, where you can go and it's like Elance or something along those lines.
Where people will do small jobs for whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
so didn't you find, because, okay, when I was working on my game, Pyroclasm, which is a mobile game, I outsourced programmers to help me.
Yeah.
That was the worst experience I ever had.
Yes.
That was...
You get... there's an extent where you get what you pay for. And, it's always been, our experience that if you're not working with someone who has absolute intimate knowledge of what you're doing, if you're going to be outsourcing the programming of a mobile game to a company who has never done mobile games, at all, you have to make sure every single piece of direction you have is crystal clear. There can be no room for interpretation in there at all. You need to be able to hand it to them and say, execute on this, and go from there. And if you can't, then you're gonna end up spending more time trying to fix and correct and straighten that ship than you would have in the first place if you had just hired a reputable company to do it, and or B, done it yourself. When I think of a lot of the stuff, especially for, indie teams that don't have a lot of time, things along those lines, it's more of the baseline stuff than the specialty stuff. It's like you can get into that specialty stuff, but, you want to be able to get the stuff off your plate that's the easiest stuff here and there. And, sending out emails, for your game, do you, if you're lead programmer or you're the artist or the designer, do you have, a day to sit down and email 200 different companies, or is it something where you can draw up the email and have somebody else do it, let you focus on something else? And so those are the types of things that you're usually working at.
So you got to, all right, Willie, thanks. Oh, well, we got a question, but one more thing about it. So basically you got to find, you don't want to, because maybe that was my issue. I didn't pay the guy very much. He was younger, so his work ethics weren't up to a standard that I wanted. Plus, there was one day where I had to argue with him for 4 hours. I wanted him to do one thing, and he's like, "That won't work. I can't do it. That won't work." And I literally argued with him for 4 hours, and finally he ended up just doing it, and it worked. And I was like, "Dude, when you hire somebody, I am paying you for your expertise, but I'm also paying you to do what I tell you to do," right? And I knew that.
But I'm not paying you to get yelled at for 4 hours,
right? To do whether you think it's right, wrong, or whatever, I'm still paying you to do it. So, yeah, that totally. Actually, that whole process turned me off of game design, of working in games. But you know what? It was just because of that. So, 6Ty4, is that what it is? Trey Parker, the South Park guy, here's what he says in chat. Said on the Nerdist podcast a few months ago that nobody buys games for the sweet-ass game mechanics. Do you think that art is more important for selling games than programming?
No. I don't think programming is more important than art either. It's the design and the execution that does it. You see games of all different types of art styles, that are successful. And you get some people who absolutely hate pixel art. And I used to be one of them, but I'm getting better. They just don't like certain types of art. And, I know I am one of the worst. And we have developers send stuff in and we look at it and they're like, "What do you think of the art?" I'm like, I'm not the guy to ask, because my answer is either going to be, I hate it or I love it. I can't sit down and say, Well, it would be better if you used a shader here and maybe you put more polys here, or you had a parallax something. And I don't even know what I just said, basically. Those are just like things I know of.
Mm.
It's that total package. And this is why we say in the industry, the big joke is that we're out in public and it's like, what do you do? And you're like, well, I work in the game industry. Oh, I got a great idea for a game. I don't care. Ideas are worth nothing. And that's the reality. You can't sit around, and I see people on Twitter and Facebook, they're like, I have this great idea for a game. How can I get it made? And there's two answers to that question. One, make it yourself, or two, pay somebody to do it. But you're not going to be able to go to a developer and say, hey, I have this idea, will you do it? And then I get, all the credit for it, because that's not how it works.
Right, because developers have their own ideas that they want to work on.
Exactly. It's like, whose idea are they going to work on? Show me a game developer that is sitting there going, I just simply cannot think of another game to make. That doesn't exist. So it's not the art or the mechanics, or the programming. It's a total package. And is the game fun? That's what does it.
Right.
Flappy Bird sold how many billions of units? That was basically stolen Mario art, and a very, very simple game mechanic. So, you can have really fun games that look like crap.
Right.
But they may not look like crap to somebody else, but they don't have great art. It's far less important than having a, beautiful game that nobody likes playing.
Yeah, because I have played some games that just look amazing, but they suck.
Yes.
They are terrible.
And that's why you say, when we talk about, like paper prototyping and, sending first cuts out to, to publishers, publishers will tell you, oh, we don't care, you put placeholder art in it, it's fine. We want to see the gameplay. Well, the reality is, don't put the placeholder art in there. Give them, they are going to want to see something pretty, but they're not going to buy it just because it's, they're not going to, sign you up to a contract just because it's pretty. It still has to be fun. But, it's very important to get that core game mechanic and that fun part in early. Much more important than, making sure that you've got, outstanding art direction.
Yeah, because if it's not fun, it doesn't matter how pretty it is.
No.
But a game can be totally fun and have terrible
If
art.
you have a game that is gorgeous but not fun, make an illustrated game book out of it. Because the art is what you're doing, and it does something. And I'm not belittling any of the art that's out there, because there's absolutely gorgeous games I love playing, but they're not, if they're not fun and they're not engaging, then they're never going to be, they're never going to take off like they could.
I agree with that totally. I agree with that statement. Okay, so that brings us more to now the second way to save time: automation and tools.
Yes. So this is the part that actually saves you a ton of time. So, again, when I was, getting started on this, there's a lot of different things that I was like trying to figure out how I could do it quickly. And, over time, that suite of tools has evolved. But, the reality is there's a whole lot of stuff out there that you can use, to, help speed up, your workflow. And so, the first one's social media. I've used Hootsuite, I've used Buffer, I've recently started using Crowdfire, and I've used a private off-the-market machine learning, system, which I loved. But it allows you to sit down at the beginning of the week, and so I would do it like on a Sunday, and I just did our social media stuff today. But you can queue up messages. And so you don't have to necessarily sit down and go, oh, it's 3:00. I have to go put a tweet out about our new demo. You can go ahead and basically prepackage those and upload those in bulk. And then, the better part of it is a lot of these systems now have the option to let their machine learning fire off your social media at, the optimal times that they know exist, which is great, because then you don't really have to worry about that. You know, you don't have to sit down and, you know, you look at some of these bigger companies and they'll have, you know, charts of we sent this tweet out on this day at this time, and this was the number of retweets and replies, and they analyze all this data and everything. You know, when we're running a 3, 5, 10, 25, 50 person studio or company, you ain't got time to do that. You know, you need to sit down, be able to get the stuff out there that you need to do, you know, engage with your audience, but you need to do it in saving as much time, you know, as possible. And so, you know, the three big ones that I see right now are you know, Crowdfire, Buffer, and Hootsuite. And then I'm going to post a cheat sheet that I think came from HubSpot. I honestly don't remember where I got this. But
I actually have it on screen too.
Oh.
But yeah,
nice.
Post that link. Oh, yeah. You got it. Okay.
So, you know, if you go to that link, that's an actual Google Sheet template, you know, that this company, you know, sent out. So it, you know, helps you layer what they call that content pipeline. And for the majority of us out there, you know, we don't necessarily need everything that they're going to do, but it's a good idea to how you can organize this stuff, you know, to get it out in a, you know, relatively intelligent, you know, way. So yeah, that's social media. Newsletters, you know, if you're sending updates to your pre-orders, to your fans, you know, to, you know, whoever it may be, a lot of, you know, email gets a lot of crap that, you know, it's not effective, but the reality is it's still extremely effective. You know, there's your, you know, you're always going to have your social followers, but if you look at the signal to noise ratio that, you know, one person's Twitter feed can see, you know, having that person's email address is far more powerful because you've got a much higher chance to see, you know, that they're going to see it when it comes in. So, I mean, the two big newsletter systems, you know, sites that we've used over the years are MailChimp and Constant Contact. I'm sure there's more out there, and a lot of these companies are, you know, as they grow, they offer more and more and more services. But, you know, it allows you to go and say, you know, different integrations with your website. So, you know, somebody comes to the site and say, hey, sign up for our newsletter, and they can sign up right there on the site or on their phone or whatever, and it automatically goes to a list that, you know, your system, be it MailChimp or Constant Contact or whoever it is, you know, is maintaining. It goes to that list, and then when your next newsletter goes out, you know, it's already good to go. You know, and their service takes care of making sure that everybody's properly opted in, and, you know, you're not violating, you know, any of the canned spam laws or any of the laws up in Canada that, you know, are a little more stringent than the ones here in the States. You know, they take care of all that. And then they give you nice little analytics based on, you know, how many people opened it, how many people read through, how many people, you know, clicked through the different, you know, parts that were on there, you know, to get feedback. And so you can actually look over time and say, hey, look, you know, our newsletter's getting better. There's more people reading it. You know, you just have to be better than we are at getting them out on time, because it's one of the things that, you know, internally I'm like, I know we need to send a newsletter. Yeah, we'll get that done shortly, soon, possibly. But, you know, in terms of, you know, things to make your life easier, I mean, like I said, MailChimp and Constant Contact are the ones that we use primarily.
I've never used Constant Contact, but MailChimp is cool. Like you said, it tracks, like if you put a Facebook logo in there, it tracks how many people click on it. Yeah, and you can also, it's what you see is what you get. It's very WYSIWYG in the design, and you can theme it right along with your website or however you want to theme it. And it's super simple to use. It doesn't take long to set up. And
I think
you could save it as a template.
It's like, yeah, I think Constant Contact's pretty much simple. I mean, almost exactly the same.
All right, so Knowledge, these are your feeds that you use, right? RSS feeds, is that what it is?
Well, Feedly. All right, so there's two. You know, Indy and I are looking at a cheat sheet we have. So we're talking about things, and y'all are like, what are they looking at? So when I say Knowledge, it's, you know, one of the things that was ingrained in my head very early in my career was to have an ongoing knowledge base. You know, And in the, in the late 90s, it was like this completely odd database looking system that was, it did what needed to be done, but it's absolutely archaic by what we have today. But, it effectively is a way for you to, keep track and be able to look back at, a lot of things that are, pertinent to what you're doing. So if you look at what we do and we focus on, the business development, marketing, licensing side of the industry, I'll take on any given day, Feedly is what I use for an RSS feed. Everybody's got their own preference on how they get their news. It doesn't really matter how you get it as long as you're getting it. Feedly is what I use personally, but I'll see an article in there, and Indy and I were chatting about this before we went live. But say, for example, there's a new publisher. I see an article on a new publisher that's just come out and announced that they're going to be doing a few games. I'll take that article and then save it over to Pocket. That's like level one. That way, I can look back in a couple of weeks or even later that week and say, okay, who was that publisher, and find it and know who it is and where it is. When I see articles about specific sales figures, it's hard to get sales figures, especially now that Steam Spy can't really accurately grab them anymore. Outside of the big companies that can afford to pay for things like NPD data or Super Data Research, which are exorbitantly expensive, you kind of got to like grab knowledge where you can. And some developer says, hey, we sold 700,000 copies of our game in China. Save that shit somewhere so you can go back and go, all right, was the Chinese market worth doing? Oh yeah, here's that company that sold 700,000 copies of their game. It's basically a big repository for you to keep stuff, so you can go back and reference it at any given time. So
can you search through stuff through Pocket, or is it like bookmarks?
No. You can completely search it, and you can tag, things. So let me pull up mine real quick. So I've got tags in there of like the Slay the Spire article. I saved that over there. I tagged it as China early access and sales. Sales is in, that sales figure. So, you can go in and click that tag, and it pops up all the articles that have that very same tag, just like anything else would do. But no, it keeps videos, images, articles, all this sort of stuff, in there for you indefinitely, and you can organize it however you need to. But the reality is, you can just search it and pull up tags. So I mean, that's that phase one of how we kind of grab knowledge and keep it. And then we use things like IFTTT, which is if this then that, and Zapier is just another one of the services. And what they do is they enable connections between apps and internet devices and different things out there that aren't necessarily connected directly. Not like you go on Twitch and you click a button and you're hooked up with your Amazon Prime account. Things that don't do that. It allows you to put like very simple little programming commands in there and and execute on it. It executes on them automatically. So as an example, one of the things that we do, as I find a new developer or a new publisher that we've never spoken to or has just started up or whatever, I'll see that article in my Feedly feed, send it over to Pocket, but then tag it with publisher prospect. It's a very specific tag that I have, and then through IFTTT, I've got a command in there that says, if it detects in my Pocket account that I tagged an article as publisher prospect, it will automatically email that article to a member of my team to look into, to make sure it's put into the database, and we don't lose that information that came through. And so there's a lot of different little, there's all kinds of random things that you can do with these services, and some of them are free and some of them aren't. But it goes down to, I just pulled up, my IFTTT page, and before we moved to the house that we're at now, you know, I had a thing that said if my Nest temperature gauge drops below a certain point, just send me a notification, because this house is in the mountains, and if it gets down below 30 and nobody's up here, then I'm going to have busted pipes everywhere. But, you know, there's a lot of different things that you can do along those lines, and it really helps me streamline, you know, my day, or actually my evening, because I'm usually, you know, sitting at home, you know, watching TV or, you know, whatever in the evening, and when I'm flipping through a lot of the news. And so then I don't have to go, all right, I need to take a note somewhere and remember in the morning when I get into the office to write this down or to put this in. You know, I just send it over to, you know, Pocket, tag it, and then it emails stuff out.
Wow. I'm looking at it now. Like, for example, it says, I just signed up, it's free. Recommended applets: automatically turn your Android device's Wi-Fi on when you get home, or mute your Android phone when you arrive at work. Turn off Wi-Fi on your Android when you leave home to save power. Tweet your Instagrams as native photos on Twitter. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's things that you can, if you have like those hue LED lights that change color.
Oh man.
You can put one of those like on your front porch, and when it detects that you're home, have it play like a little sequence, you know, and it's like the, hey, you're home light sequence, whatever. I mean, there's tons of like completely random things that you can do. I mean, and, you know, really useful things as well. But from a practical standpoint, you know, you can use a lot of it for your, you know, your social media, you know, sending yourself notes. You can actually have it grab every tweet that somebody sends. You know, you can define a Twitter account, not your own, anyone's, and every time that Twitter account releases something, it'll save it into a Google spreadsheet for you. I mean, there's countless amounts of things that, you know, you can do with these little, you know, services. You just have to go in and set them up, and then, you know, let them go, basically.
Just take the time to be able to do it. And then I'm sure there's always new innovative things that people come up with.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So you kind of have to stay on top of that a little bit.
They'll send you a nice little email of all like the new random shit that it does. It's like, I have one that sends me a notification when the space station goes over our house, because I just like step outside and see it, because it's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That's cool. So I have that. I now have that pocketed because I signed up for Pocket just. Which with Pocket was already in my browser, which is crazy.
But I mean, a lot of these things, and I'm guilty of it too, if you don't use them for a few weeks, you kind of like forget that they're there. And so you'll kind of get out of the habit of doing it. And after a while, you know, you have to go and reconnect to these apps on, it was like every several months or whatever, you'll have to go and, you know, recreate, you know, or re-verify anyway, the connection between these apps. But, you know, it's extremely handy, you know, when you get in to start playing around with it.
Hey, Pyre, I can see how it could be a time saver and a time waster.
Yes, well, there's that aspect of it too.
Oh, what was that? Stumble Upon? Did you ever use Stumble Upon?
I did years ago. I haven't used that in forever.
Oh, me either. That was I mean, you could find some amazing stuff on there, but you could also get sucked into just hours of stumbling. Hours and hours and hours of stumbling.
The website that I had to eventually just like unsubscribe from their updates on, because I would read an email and then I would be 2 hours later, is Quora. And Quora is awesome. You know, there's a lot of like really great knowledge on there. You know, people ask questions and you get, you know, experts responding on it. But I would go from something in the industry where it was, you know, a question I answered, or I was reading somebody's answer, to an extremely detailed tactical plan if you were going to attack Cinderella's castle at Disney World with a military force, assuming the castle was to scale. Random like that. And I would be sitting there like hours going, oh, wow. That's a good idea. That's the rabbit hole I have to be constantly, you know, on guard of not falling in.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we got here? Toggle, Tripit, and Keymailer. Well, I know what Keymailer is.
Yes.
I loves me some Keymailer.
I'm going to throw these things in chat while we're talking.
Okay.
Yes, Keymailer is excellent. You know, the biggest complaint that I see from a lot of developers is, you know, we sent out all these keys and then they got sold on the gray market, and, nobody ever reviewed our game, and that sort of stuff. Use a service like Keymailer. It makes it easy. You get verified people. It's not going to guarantee you're going to get reviewed, but at least you're not like, funding.
Can you track your keys with Keymailer?
I don't know.
And I know that I thought
think you can. I'm not, because we're not a developer. I've never actually had to go in and use it.
So I
know what it does, but
working for Animus Interactive, and when the game was released on Steam, we just bam, we were on Keymailer. We didn't have to put it on there. So the way I am assuming that it worked at the time, is every game that is on Steam is on there, and they put it on there, but then they reach out to the developer afterwards, unless the developer reaches out beforehand to them.
Oh, see, I wasn't even thinking about it from the developer end from the streamer end back to the developer. I was looking at it from the developer back out to the streamers. But yeah, the easiest way to make sure you're not getting, completely screwed over when it comes to, keys that you're sending out is to use Keymailer. Toggl is extremely, one of the toughest things when I started the consulting firm was figuring out, okay, if I need to do XYZ task, how long does that take? How much should I bill somebody for that? That sort of stuff. Toggl is very simple. It plugs into Chrome. When you start doing something, you hit it and you say, I'm, streaming with Indy right now. And when I get done, I click it. And, at the end of the week, I can say, oh, okay, look, so we're doing this new streaming thing with Indy. And I spent a total of 3 hours on it this week between, research and prep and getting ready and the actual stream itself. It's very good for that. And even if you don't, because here's the other thing, it's I would start it and then 24 hours later, I would get an email notification that says, hey, you're still doing this? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. But you can go back in and edit it later and you can put things in. But, if you want to, if you're constantly getting to the end of the day and you're like, I cannot believe I didn't get all this other shit done. Or, you have to figure out how long it's taking to do something for, to be billable or that sort of stuff. Toggl's great. It's cheap, it's free, and it's very easy to use. And TripIt is...
Oh, it's $9 a month.
What, Toggl?
Yeah.
There's a free version of it, isn't there?
So start with 30 days for free. Oh, basic plan is always free. Okay.
Yeah, that's just the basic plan. I didn't need you don't necessarily need anything drastic on it. TripIt is for getting all of your travel plans together and organized and in one spot, which doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal, but it is when you're going to 6 or 7 shows a year and it's okay, where's my ticket for this? And where's my flight info? And what am I doing? Once you get it set up with TripIt, when you order a plane ticket and Gmail sends it to you, TripIt basically scans your Gmail and automatically puts it in there. And it's, wonderfully fantastic and easy to use. And I've actually noticed that I'm on the pro plan now because that's how much I loved it. And if I'm at an airport and we get a gate change, I actually see that come through on my phone before I even hear it, before they even announce it in the airport. So
wow.
If you're traveling, personal or business, quite frankly, it's a wonderful, tool that you can use to keep all of your stuff organized. When you go on the trip, pull up that trip and TripIt, and it's got your plane ticket, your car rental, your hotel room, parties that you're going to. You can sync it up with Eventbrite when you're at GDC. If there's 5 different parties that you've got invites to, you can put the evites in TripIt, and you don't have to keep track of all those emails. It's all right there. So that's a very, very handy one, as well. And I noticed we're running out of time. We haven't even got to the biggest part of this thing yet.
That's okay. We can go. It's our show. We can go as long as we want.
Can we get permission from the producers to go over a little bit today?
Yeah.
The CRM, CRM stands for customer relationship manager, I believe. Pretty sure we'll go with that. When you're doing biz dev in the industry, it's absolutely the key linchpin. If you have nothing else you're doing, you need this. It keeps your email information, your tracking. A lot of them actually will have your emails in there if you've got it synced up to, Gmail or whatever you use. So you've got all your contact information, all the emails from somebody, but and you're sitting there going, well, yeah, Gmail does that automatically. It's like, yeah, it does. But, this also, a CRM is going to allow you to remember and to ping you to, constantly follow up with folks, to touch base every 3 months and see what they're doing, keep little notes about your last conversation in there, something that might not have been in an email, or if you want to, put in notes from a phone call that you had or something along those lines. A lot of them now, you can put in somebody's social media stuff. So, their Twitter account, their Facebook account, their LinkedIn, YouTube, what have you. You can put that in there and it will actually update, their account page on your CRM with their latest tweets and things like that. So, it's at the most basic level, it's an organization system that, lets you keep track of all the people that you know. If you're using it properly, it's going to, remind you to, check in with people. You can go and, Indy and I are doing the stream now, and I'll put a note in at the end. It's like, okay, next Monday, start brainstorming, what we need to get done, or send Indy an email that says, hey, what do you think we need to do this week? Or, any kind of different thing. If I've got a developer that we're working for to try to get them a publishing deal, and we send their game out to, 125 different publishers, which isn't a lot given that, we deal with 500, some around the world, it's hard to remember to who you emailed when you emailed 125 different people. So, you put that in there, you send it out, you start thinking through, who you're sending it to. You send it out, through Nutshell or through Contactually or one of these other different, services, or you just send it out in Gmail. But then you can put a note a week later into that person's account that says, check in. Did you get the demo? Have a chance to play the demo? And that way nothing falls through the cracks. We're talking about CRMs in general, Red Tiger. It's a tool to keep you organized and to keep you focused and keep all your business stuff in one space. So, the 5 that I would say start with, recommend as a small company, are Nutshell, Contactually, Zoho, Insightly, and Sugar CRM. Are those on the, can you put those on the screen, or should we drop them in the chat?
I'll drop them in chat.
Okay.
My chat was messing up, so happened because you were answering him, and I didn't see you. So go ahead. I'll put them in there.
Those are 5 that are pretty streamlined, basic. They're not going to cost you an arm and a leg. A lot of them, if you don't need it for more than, they all have basically a free plan. And so depending on how many people you need, or, how many people from your company you need, or how many people you need to, put in there in general, they may have different prices or features. When you start Googling CRM, the one that's going to come up top every single time is Salesforce. And if you're running a multi-billion-dollar refrigerator sales business, Salesforce is awesome. If you're an indie dev, it's, you're killing a mosquito with a sledgehammer. I mean, it's just, there's no need for, the cost of it and for all the stuff that it does, to get in there. And, when you can get one of these, that's, a lot cheaper.
So which one's your favorite one? Which one do you use the most, do you think?
Here's the embarrassing part. We actually use 2 because I can't find one that does exactly what I want it to do. We use Nutshell for our, what I would call our core CRM, stuff. Keeping track of, developers, publishers, who's the tags. We now track streamers and, yes, you're right, Red Tiger. Awesome, maybe an overstatement, but you know what I say. It's very powerful if you want to, slam your face on the wall long enough to learn how to use it. Nutshell does all the stuff that we need on the CRM side. Contactually is more of it's a hybrid CRM. It's like, it doesn't do the CRM stuff as well as I would like something to, but it does allow for very easy email campaigns, either from, almost newsletter type things to marketing drip campaigns. So if we wanted to set up a campaign for the show where we're like, okay, every week we're going to, drop a little bit of knowledge and notes from the show out to viewers. If you sign up, then, I can set contextually to say, okay, email, Red Tiger Pro on Thursday with, episode 1 notes, and then wait 7 days, email them with episode 2. And you have to go and you have to put in the notes and, have these little templates set up. But you can actually set up fairly automated drip campaigns, that way. Or, what we use it for, more than anything else is when we send out product to publishers. I always tell our devs, like, how many people are going to look at our game? A third of them. If we're sending a game to 150 publishers, 50 of them are going to look at it and get back to us. We can send the exact same game out to the same 150, 3 weeks later, and we'll still get 50 that read it, but it's going to be a completely different 50. There's like no rhyme or reason as to, who hits it. And, it pops off of somebody's screen, one day and it doesn't, next. It's, depends on what's going on. But when we send these things out to 150 different people, 3 days later, I can sit down and look at the statistics of the email and say, okay, here's the companies that opened it, and here's the companies that haven't. We just sent out a product a couple of weeks ago, and, we can tell, who's looked at it, who hasn't. And then, get a call from our developer, and they're like, nobody's downloading the game. I'm like, what are you talking about? So we've had like, a dozen people come back and say they want test flight codes. And he's like, yeah, we have sent them. And not a single one of them has opened it. We're just like, what is, why are you requesting things you don't want to play? Or, I don't, they can be busy or whatever. But, things like contextually, and there's other, Yesware, I think, is more of an email one. And then there's another one I learned about like just yesterday. But those they're not what I would call full CRM solutions, and the fact that they don't do all the stuff that, allows us to go in and filter through, 3,000 developers, in a few minutes. But, they do things on the email side. It's not, sometimes you want to send things that aren't newsletters. Newsletters can get opted out of and unsubscribed and things like that. But, when you're just trying to, send emails, but you have a lot of them to send, things like Contactually and some of these other email services, work because they let you go through and individually customize every single one. And that's what it does. We can say, here's the baseline text that we want to send out to, publishers, and here's the list of publishers we want to send it to. But it actually lets us go through, and instead of recreating the email every single time, we go through them one at a time, and we can customize it and say, okay, this and this and this, whatever. And so we're able to do personalized emails, but it takes like a tenth of the time.
Which is important.
God, yes.
I just noticed something now on Twitch. When I put my mouse on the link that's in chat, a little pop-up happens and it tells me like what the spider's crawl of whatever that website is.
Nice.
Is that doing it for you? It's doing it for me.
I'm doing it on mine.
Interesting. Okay.
I get no pop-up.
So you guys got some more questions? Any other questions? We didn't get any questions on Twitter, but if you have more questions for next week, make sure and use this hashtag Indie Game Business on Twitter. Right there. Let me just double check real quick. Twitter.com. The one tab I don't have open. Not Twitter. Indie Game Business. Yep, no questions there. But anything else you want to add, Jay?
No, I mean, as we always say, if you've got questions, don't worry about taking furious notes. If you don't need to, you can always just reach out and, ask us. My Twitter is in it's on the page right there. And then we've actually got a link we added this week to the page where, click that or to go to our website, pop in your email, and we'll send you. We've got like 6 or 7 indie development business guys that things like contract negotiation and how to pitch to publishers, and creating a budget for your game, and general biz dev. A lot of the stuff that we cover in these videos, it's in these. We've got them in white paper document form too, so you can always just click on that, and we'll send it out to you. And if you've got questions, things that you may not want to ask here on the air, or just follow-up stuff, let us know. Happy to do it.
Right. Also, you can watch the VOD and also the YouTube channel, which I'm going to have that information in here soon on the button, or in the panels underneath. We'll have a link to the YouTube, because we're going to post, the videos are getting posted on YouTube as well. So maybe with the YouTube videos, we can put all the links to everything we talked about in the description. That might be helpful to break down the videos.
That would be good.
Yeah. That's another time thing. We got to outsource it, man.
Yes, outsource it.
We're going to outsource it.
Find somebody to do that too.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else? Oh, wait, Pyre. When you get into an alpha and a beta, you'll play for several hours, and if you don't like it, you'll not touch it again until the next session. Then I'll go in for a couple hours and see if anything has changed. If not, you hit the old uninstall and submit your review, and that's it. Can we outsource surveys?
Yeah. You can't. The rest of us can. All right, so Pyre, I'm going to give you props, because if I get into a game that I don't like, I can't play it for hours. I can play it for like minutes.
Yeah.
So, impressed that, and thankful for those of you out there that will stick through it more than that.
That's why I try, whenever a dev gives me a game to stream, I will try to play it before the stream, because if I start playing a game and I freaking hate it on stream, it is blatantly obvious. And I'm not one to do reviews on stream. I do game previews. So I try and not preview games that I don't like. My answer is always, this game isn't for me, but I bet some people would like it.
I'm sure there are people who are, basically masochists who would enjoy this game, but it's not us.
Unlike my good friend Triton, and he doesn't put up with that stuff. Triton runs, it's a Steam group. I can't remember what it's called, Triton, if you're still here. Where they talk about games that, are just cash grabs. Because there were a lot of them on Steam I can't remember the name of that dev.
I know who you're talking about. They'll take the Unity assets and basically just throw it up there and,
Yes, Digital Homicide. Triton's right there, my friend.
So
Digital
is that a Steam
Homicide.
Group?
Yeah, he's got a Steam group. He was interviewed by Polygon about Digital Homicides. Yeah. Digital. The group is called Digital Homicides, but the dev was called Digital Homicide.
I am finding this.
Yeah. Oh, you just opened your right. See, I summoned you. I'm like,
perfect timing.
Triton, and then he shows up. Cash grabs.
All right. Okay. No, Pyre, they're not. Those games sell ridiculous amounts of units in Germany. I mean, unbelievable numbers.
People love those games, and they will get like the whole dashboard and driving setup, and with an actual vehicle chair. Go drive a truck.
Well, you'll see a lot of those, extremely, specific simulators. It's like, Steamroller Simulator or City Bus Simulator or the truck simulators. They are absolutely huge in Germany and Eastern Europe as well. Poland, Russia, absolute ridiculous amounts of numbers.
Crazy.
Because it's like I grew up in the rural South, and then they started coming out with farm simulators, and I'm like going, why in the living hell would you want to sit down and simulate, what I'm doing, anyway? And I don't get it. And Pyre, that's exactly how I feel about hunting simulators too. It's like, unless you're going to put me in a video game where I'm going to freeze my ass off for 5 hours and not see anything, then it's not really a simulator.
I actually played a hunting simulator that was pretty fun. I can't remember which one it was called, but it was pretty fun. And then you'd have to go to the lookout towers, and it was pretty fun. Tracking down, I think
Which
what
one
they
was
do
it?
is, I can't remember. I think that what they do is they take like the essence of the feeling of whatever that it is they're simulating, and then try and simulate that. It's not necessarily simulating, driving a truck. I don't even know. I don't really play those games, but I had fun playing it. Let me look and see what it is, if I can find it, if I have it still installed.
Functional Idiot says he has a racing rig. Let me explain what he actually has. He built a PVC pipe frame around a racing seat with steering wheel and pedals, and then it's all hooked up to the VR headset, so he can play. What is that? What's the car racing game? The True Car. What was it? What was the one that you built that for?
Man, I can't believe stupid simulator games I have.
Project Cars. That was it.
Project Cars.
Yeah. So he's got a minor racing rig over at his place.
How can you see the steering wheel? You just know where it is?
Hopefully he's got his hands on it.
That's funny. I've got Euro Truck Simulator, Goat Simulator, Surgeon Simulator, Grass Simulator, Construction Simulator, World Ship Simulator, Helicopter Simulator, Corporate Lifestyle Simulator, Indie Game Sim. Oh, and then of course, Oh Sir, the Insult Simulator.
Goat Simulator is not really a simulator.
No, at all. Tabletop
boat.
Simulator and Paco Car Chase Simulator.
Andy asked how you can, if you've got your VR headset on,
How can you see the steering wheel?
how can you see the steering wheel?
This is not Ready Player One, which we saw that movie, which was a great movie, but the
Is it
second
good? I
time,
haven't seen it yet.
the second time I found a lot of holes in a lot of the things that they were doing. But it was a really good movie. Okay, you're out. You have hands. All right, everybody. Thank you, and we'll be back next week. It's same bat time, same channel. Yeah, so make sure and follow at our Twitter at Powell Group. And what's your Twitter, Jay?
Powell_J, Jay.
Powell_J. Okay, awesome. And any questions? You look down. Any questions? Make sure and hit us on Twitter at #IndieGameBusiness.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.